Hey guys, so you don't want to miss today's video. I talk about the biggest mistake gig workers like Uber and Lyft and DoorDash drivers make when they first start out. So tune into my video, watch it, because I'm going to be talking about some really good, important information that could help you if you are interested in being a gig worker, or if you're already a gig worker. You don't want to miss this video. Well, hello everybody. Happy Thursday to you. It has been a beautiful day here in Southern California, and the weather has finally cooled off. It was in the 70s today. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. So today I want to talk a little bit about gig work. A lot of you might not know, I have put out some videos, but I have been a gig worker now for over 8 years, believe it or not. Yeah, I can't even believe it. 8 years. Yeah, since I was 21 years old, I have been a gig worker, and I'm 29 now. So yeah, it's been 8 years. About 6.5 of those years, I was a Uber driver in the Phoenix and Scottsdale area, and I gave about 35,000 people a ride over that period of 6.5 years. Yeah, it kind of blows my mind when I think about it. And, you know, there was so many things about it that I like. I miss parts of it, but, you know, for those of you who might be watching that are new to my channel, I actually live and travel full-time here in my van. I still do gig work, but I'm actually just doing deliveries through like Uber Eats and Grubhub and things like that. So I don't give rides in my van too often anymore. And I say too often because back in March of this year, there was the Taylor Swift concert. She kicked off her world tour in Glendale, Arizona. And I actually happened to be going through on my way out here to Southern California, and so I decided to stop, spend a few days. I made some videos. I made a video about how I can still do Uber rides while living in my van. So if you want to check out that video, I will put it in the description, and you can see how I do that and live in my van and give Uber rides. But I don't do that regularly because it is it's a lot of work, but it is possible. But that's not what I really wanted to talk about this video. This video is about the biggest mistake Uber drivers, DoorDash drivers, just gig workers make. But before I go into that, I do want to mention that, you know, during the 6.5 years that I was a Uber driver, I was doing some I was kind of like a doing how do you say, so the about 6.5 years that I was an Uber and Lyft driver in Phoenix, I actually was also doing advocating work for gig workers. So I was advocating for rights and higher pay, and, you know, because even now, you know, gig work has only been around for about maybe 11 or 12 years. And so there's a lot of things that are still, you know, trying to be figured out, far as, you know, rights, compensation. You know, here in California, they have the Prop 22, which, you know, guarantees gig workers a certain, you know, they make about 120% of minimum wage when they're on an active ride or an active order. That doesn't apply to like idle time when you don't have an order. So I did a lot of advocating for things kind of like that, not exactly in the same kind of way in Arizona, but I wanted to see, you know, like there be minimum fare amounts that were fair to drivers, you know, resources for when things go wrong, you know, safety measures for, you know, the drivers with passengers and things like that. And so I did a lot of advocating. I had a lot of meetings, more specifically with Lyft. Uber was really hard to work with. They really didn't want to talk too much. They did a little bit, but I did have quite a few meetings with Lyft corporate. I had phone meetings with their corporate office in San Francisco, and then I had in-person meetings with the regional director there in the Phoenix area, their office there. I had several meetings with her and with sometimes just myself, but and then other times with other drivers. I was on the news several times, and then we did these, awareness drives, excuse me, where we would, get about 100, sometimes more of us drivers together, and we would, put writing on our windows. We would, we'd have the news there, and, it would be to really raise awareness, about our wages and things like that. And so I did a lot of work there. But so in telling you that, why I'm telling you all this is because I got to, in doing that, meet a lot of drivers. A lot. I mean, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of drivers, maybe even could be more than 1,000. During my whole time, I probably met more than 1,000 drivers. And there's one mistake that I always notice that drivers, especially new drivers, would make that would really hinder them actually making a profit, because this is a business. You have to think about this, if you're an Uber driver, Lyft driver, a DoorDash driver, this is a business. And, you're basically a small business owner. And a lot of times what I would see drivers do is they would, go and buy a brand new car or a brand new SUV or a brand new van. And the thing is, that makes it, your profit margins when doing this is very little. There's not always a lot of profit. And so when you make a large purchase that's $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, I even knew some drivers that were buying some SUVs and vans that were like $50,000, $60,000, and I would talk to these drivers that have made, these large purchases, and within 1 to 2 years, the vehicle would have, sometimes as much as 100,000 miles, but they still owed the bank, a very large portion of money. And then the vehicle was worth not very much after having so many miles so quickly put on them. Because when you see a vehicle that's only 1 or 2 years old that has 100,000 miles, it really significantly decreases the value of the vehicle. And, what would happen is, they would owe all this money, and then the vehicle wouldn't be worth anything, or very little at that point. And, and then at that point it needs maintenance and all sorts of things. And I saw this time and time again. I knew dozens of drivers that, they just had to let the vehicle go back to the bank because they couldn't, afford the upkeep and all the payments and everything. And so that is the biggest mistake, that a driver can make, Uber driver can make, is going and buying a new vehicle. That you don't need a new vehicle. And a lot of times I would hear, drivers would want to buy a secondary vehicle, that maybe was more efficient, like a hybrid or something, so that they could go out and use that vehicle. And that thing is, this job really doesn't pay enough to warrant having just a second brand new vehicle. Now, if you want to go out and buy, say, like a 12, 13-year-old Prius, that was well taken care of, that makes sense. But buying a brand new vehicle for this job it just doesn't make a lot of sense to do that. And I was actually looking up on my phone here just a little bit ago about what the current requirements are to be an Uber driver, vehicle requirements. And you probably can't see that, but the minimum requirements right now are 16 years old, the vehicle. So you can have as old as a 2007, vehicle, which is actually my van now is a 2007, so my van still qualifies, and sometimes they update that every year, but I've also seen Uber and Lyft, they'll go a couple years, 2 or 3 years before they update that. So that 16-year-old rule, that might be a 2007 they might allow that 2007 for another, 2 years. They kind of change how they do it, year by year sometimes, I've noticed. But, you know, use what you have. That's my biggest advice. If you have a SUV right now, but you really want something that's more efficient, well, at least start out. If you're just wanting to start out and give it a try, at least, before you go and, buy another vehicle that's maybe more fuel efficient, use what you have. See if this is for you, because gig work is not for everybody. There is a lot that goes into it. There's a lot that can happen. And, yeah, just use what you have. And and it also really, and I want to really stress this point, is it really depends on your market. One market, meaning, your city or town, wherever you are, some cities, some towns might be really busy, where others, there might be very little gig work, But if you, get started and, you're making a lot of money, but you're like, oh, but I'm spending so much on gas, or my vehicle that I have right now is, really getting old, set aside some money. But whatever you do, don't buy a brand new vehicle. It really will take so much of your profit, and it will be in the long term, after the depreciation, you will really make very little money after you account for the depreciation of that vehicle. A vehicle depreciates about 30% the moment you walk off or drive off the dealer lot, and it's really hard to make up that 30% doing gig work. So, just, you have to do what works best for you, but I've seen, people go and buy a $5,000 Prius. That's what I originally started out with. I had about a $5,000 Prius about 6.5 years ago. I think it was a 2007, the same year as my van right now. And, I was able to use that for several years, and it worked great. As long as you do your homework, find a good vehicle. The best, most reliable vehicles out there really are Toyotas and Hondas, and, in some cases, Kias. There's really good Kias that have been made, and you can find some really good deals out there. I was even looking, recently, and I saw some really nice Priuses that were, like 2008, 2009 for like $5,500, had like 150,000 miles. And Priuses are known to go, 3, 4, even 500,000 miles. There's Hondas out there that will go that long. You just have to do your research, and it could save you a lot of money and actually make your business profitable, because the last thing you want to do is go buy that new car, put 100,000 miles on it in 2 years, and then, you owe $30,000 and the car's worth $7,000 or $8,000. You don't want to do that. And put yourself in that position where you're upside down, and I think a lot of drivers, because I know there'll be drivers that argue, oh, I make a lot of money, with my new car, da, 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 da. But here's the thing, you have to also think about insurance. Insurance is way more on a new car versus an old car. On an older car that's only worth like $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, you can just maintain liability insurance. And that, in most cases, is, a third or half of what full coverage would cost. That's going to save you probably thousands right there per year. And the other thing that people, because this is arguments that, I've been privy to, that people have new versus used cars for gig work. The thing is a lot of these people that will put the 100,000 miles on the car, what they'll do is they'll go and trade that car in 2 years. But the thing is they're just rolling the debt. They still owe, $20,000 on that 2-year-old car. Well, they're rolling that debt into the new car, and I've seen drivers, that have, gotten a new car, every couple years doing gig work, and their payments are like $1,400 because they just keep rolling the debt over and over, because they just keep getting a new car, but they weren't done paying for the car before, and that you're just sinking yourself into a hole that's going to make it so hard for you to get out. And you're just paying and paying, and you're paying all that interest to the banks. Just it's so much better to make it simple, buy something that's very inexpensive and go from there. So I thought I would just share this experience with you. I'm sure there will be people that, think differently and have a different opinion, but this is just what I have seen, in my about 8 years of experience of gig work. I would never personally use a new vehicle for gig work. It's just, yeah, not worth it to me. And I hope that this video was helpful. And I'm not going to leave you guys without a quote. I got one at the ready here. And today's quote is, "The only thing that will make you happy is being happy with who you are and not who people think you are." Oh, I love that quote. Beautiful, well said. And that was by the actress Goldie Hawn, somebody who I really, really admire. She has done so much in the mental health space and mindfulness space. And, I really, really appreciate her work. So that's a beautiful quote. I hope you guys have a great day, evening, wherever you are. Until next time, take care, guys. Bye.